Tetris Effect, at first, seems like just another of the 1,000 different ports and variants of the most popular video game ever made. And honestly, I can't really argue with that. Ultimately, it's the same as any other version of Tetris. There are 7 different kinds of blocks, or tetraminos, which are each made up of 4 square pieces. The goal is to arrange them at the bottom of the screen into neatly organized lines that clear from the board when formed. From a pure mechanical standpoint, the only really thing it adds is this zone mechanic that allows you to chain lines on top of one another for this extra little layer of satisfaction. Tetris as a game just feels inherently satisfying to play in the same way that organizing a messy room feels satisfying. Perhaps more for some than others, it's at least somewhat in human nature to want to sort and organize things. Organization to humans is in part how we make sense of the world. We classify things all the time. Fruits and vegetables, pop and indie, left and right, good and bad. This sort of organization and classification is what makes things easier to understand and compartmentalize. If we didn't do that, we'd all be philosophers prying at the seemingly endless quandaries of the world, instead of clearing that metaphorical line from our brain and moving on with our lives. In a similar kind of spirit then, let's pry. When we classify something as a video game, we do it mostly based on one thing. Interactivity is a core part of the experience. We hit play to start a movie or listen to a song, but we don't interact with it beyond that point. Therefore, it's not a video game. Of course, if we're making a movie or making a song, we are interacting with it. So does that make Logic Pro 10 a video game? It can be just as fun as a game after all. It's petty to even really give such things that degree of thought, because most people would just say, if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. That is to say, if it looks like a video game, it probably is one. And because Tetris Effect is ostensibly just another version of Tetris, it also is probably just a video game. But if we're talking about the value of Tetris Effect, what it has that perhaps other forms of Tetris, or even other video games for that matter, don't have, it's because of just about everything outside of the core game. While the Tetris board sits square in the center of the screen, it blends into and evolves with its surrounding visuals, as if these visuals are the true focus of the experience. Rather than telling an explicit narrative, the visuals instead evoke a particular feeling or atmosphere. Familiar shapes like animals and landscapes will occasionally materialize, but very rarely do they evoke any particular culture or heritage. Its ambiguity forces players to draw upon their own lived experiences to complete the picture. As a result, Tetris Effect's visuals come off as more universally human. The same could be said for the music. The musical stylings here may appeal most to the Western pop audience of the modern day, but the influence is both global and historical. Pieces of songs that may be inspired by a particular culture do so respectively rather than appropriatively, making it seem as though the goal, similar to the visuals, was to make all of this appear as a component of a larger, more universal whole. What makes the experience stand out most, however, is that all components dynamically affect one another, true to the game's title. The visuals inform the music and vice versa, creating a larger sense of cohesion to the whole thing. Instead of Tetris looking and sounding like Tetris, it instead looks and sounds like whatever feeling the experience happens to elicit. Based on just this, one might conclude that actually Tetris Effect isn't much of a video game at all, because everything that makes it work has nothing to do with the interactivity. And up to a point they may be right, but the final cog that makes the whole machine click together is that the interconnectedness of the music and visuals also extends to the interactivity of the experience, to the controller you're holding. The gameplay itself affects how everything contextualizing the gameplay looks, sounds, and feels, making it feel more unique, personal, and distinctly human. While that input may not affect the visuals and music on a deep compositional level, it does affect the experience enough to impact how that experience affects you. And because the game never tells explicit stories, it leaves a lot more room for self-insertion. And because of how simple and universal the Tetris gameplay is, the experience is surprisingly applicable across the entire emotion spectrum. It's not often one can say that an arcade game about organization made them cry. but Tetris Effect can and will. And that's due in large part to the game itself and its presentation, sure, but it also is due to whatever the player brings to the experience themselves, emotionally. Ultimately, video games are the same as anything else, they're experiences. And just like listening to a song, or watching a movie, or organizing a messy room, or watching a YouTube video, we choose to partake in these experiences because they make us feel something. Tetris Effect, more than most other experiences, is about that feeling on a primal, universal level. And isn't that really what humanity's all about? Thank you so much for watching this video. This video was a segment of a larger video by my buddy Chariot Rider about the concept of the golden record. So if you're interested in that, go check out that larger video. Some other folks talked about different variants of Tetris in that video as well. I wasn't the only one, so that's pretty cool. Another video I think you should watch is an update video that is out on this channel right now. Unless it isn't. If it's not, then you're watching this in the future. I already removed it. Don't worry about it. And in that case, then, watch some other thing on this channel. I don't know. It'll be great. Go do that. Bye. So if you're interested in that, go check out that video.